I'd like to call the meeting to order. If it's not one thing, it's another. Okay, roll call, please.
Here.
Councilmember Wilkinson.
Present.
Mayor Cooper.
Here.
Councilmember Mark.
Here.
Councilmember Carapiet.
Here.
Thank you. On to city council reports. Does anyone have anything to report that they've been doing over the last month?
So I attended the January TAM meeting, and it was their first meeting of the year. And there was a lot of organizational things that went on, and they talked about their priorities for 2025. They also had a presentation regarding e-bikes. And the county is working on a program regarding the e-bikes, and they have worked with law enforcement and come up with a ordinance that they would like to have every community, city, town in the county pass before the school year starts this fall. And so I was able to forward that on to the city manager, Robert Zanuck, and he has taken over that project.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, I met with Christina Rourke, who is a consultant with ACOM, who is working with the county to develop a jurisdiction or a multi-jurisdictional approach to sea level rise planning and adaptation. And this was primarily for her to solicit input from the city as they try and understand what's the best path forward in terms of coordinating with the 11 jurisdictions that would be part of this group. It's unclear what the specific goals are at this point in time. There's a steering committee meeting in March. So this is mainly an input meeting, but there's obviously some work being done.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I attended the Disaster Advisory Council meeting a couple of weeks ago, and I just wanted to announce that Belvedere Chair Tom Cromwell introduced our two new representatives, Ruben Kalra and Keith Pagan, at the committee, and I think they're going to move forward. It's a great group there, so I'm excited about it. One issue that came up from the Office of Emergency Management is that they were having a little difficulty getting the alert Marin noticing out in a timely way for that tsunami warning. And they discussed the reasons why, what they think the problem is. They're working on it, and they're hoping to get that solved so that they get these alerts out much quicker than they were able to. So it was a great learning experience for them as well. I do want to announce that Tiburon Mayor Holly Tier and I are hosting a community fire safety forum on February 25th. It'll be held in the Founders Room at the library. A reception will begin at 5:30 in the art gallery area. We may even have some giveaways, so I think everyone should plan to attend. Program will start at 6 for about an hour, and so far we've invited people from speakers from Tiburon Fire, Southern Marin Fire, Fire Safe Marin, the Office of Emergency Management. Lori Nilsson will be there, and Chief Wu and Chief Jean from Tiburon. So I hope everyone can attend that. And I just wanted to say that we had our first emergency preparedness working group meeting, and we will be meeting monthly with informal updates back to the council and a formal report back to the city council in the fall. So are there any questions, comments from the audience? No? Okay. Mr. Zanuck, would you like to do your city manager report?
Sure. Thanks, Mayor Cooper. I just have really two very brief updates this evening. I wanted to mention on the topic of public outreach, I wanted to let everyone know that our council retreat later this week will be broadcast over Zoom. So if you're not able to attend in person, please consider tuning in this Thursday at 9 a.m. to get a glimpse of what your council and staff will be prioritizing this year and beyond. You can visit the City of Belvedere main page for login details, the meeting agenda, and the packet. And then the last update I have is just a comment that we're still working with the Mallard Point developer on ironing out a new cost recovery agreement. And as soon as that's in place, we'll start processing and reviewing their submitted application. Since my briefing of last month, we've not received any new submittals. That's all I have. Happy to take questions.
Any questions from the council? Anyone from the public or on Zoom?
There are no hands raised.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to move on now to the presentation of the City of Belvedere Spotlight Award to Jerry Reason of Tiburon Open Space. And I'm going to call up Maureen Johnson. Is the mic on?
As I was saying, Ken and I are here with Bob McCaskill and Nana Hart in support of Jerry receiving the Spotlight Award. For those of you that are not familiar with Jerry's efforts, let me tell you that for over 30 years, Jerry has been working tirelessly to preserve the Tiburon property as open space and to keep it from development. Years ago, probably in 1980, 1989 or 1990, residents were invited to take a bed sheet and go up on the Tiburon Ridge, take the sheets and hold them together to create the illusion of a wall that would mean the development of the ridge would look like that. And there are some pictures that.
Just wanted to add, we know the year because our son's in this picture and he was 6 years old.
He's now 41. Obviously, the pictures showed, and everybody, we soon then were able to procure the St. Hilary's open space, but it wasn't finished yet. We still had the Martha property. So with all of Jerry's efforts and actually everyone funding the Martha property, it was $42 million and 110 acres. But we were successful. And now the entire Tiburon Ridge is open as open space in perpetuity for all of us to enjoy and generations to come. So we feel Jerry is very deserving of this award. Bob?
Jerry, the incredible thing to me is that the people, the citizens of Belvedere probably benefit from your handiwork more than the citizens of Tiburon, because unlike Tiburon, we face this way. Over half our town gets up every morning and looks at your handiwork. You are incredible. Your perseverance has been unbelievable. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
I'd just like to add, Jerry and I met, I think, about 1986, both on the Belvedere Tiburon Recreation Committee Joint Powers Agreement. And he's a super, super volunteer. And I just can't believe it's been 35 years that he's been at this. And the result is just amazing.
I have been a very, very frequent walker up on that ridge with picnics and birthdays and parties and getting people out of town to come and see the Bay Area and get a bird's eye view from that whole ridge. And I can't think of the nightmare if you hadn't been here and helped us all preserve it. And I think with the whole peninsula voting to tax themselves to help a little to acquire this place just shows how important it is and will be for generations to come. So thank you very, very much for all your work.
Very clever.
Thanks.
Sorry. Oh, Jerry, go ahead, please.
Do I go now or later?
Go ahead, go now.
I'm up.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for your kind words. It might have been the 1800s. It felt like it at times. It's been a long slog. But Tiburon Open Space in our original forming was called the Last Chance Committee, and that actually is the appropriate name for what we have all done. We all prevailed. Times not everybody agrees with everything, but on this one topic, it was almost an 80% yes. And that's a pretty rare thing when you're taxing yourself. So I congratulate all of you for your wisdom, and that property, as I like to say, is preserved for everyone forever. And I thank you.
Jerry, I didn't mean to make a big splash while doing this, but I'm very pleased to be able to give you this Spotlight Award for the excellence in leadership and community service, and for your extraordinary contribution to the whole Tiburon Peninsula as a volunteer. I think Belvedere was very proud to be able to support your efforts with the donation the city made. Many of our private citizens made donations, and of course, our wonderful Belvedere Community Foundation was
Yep.
able to also make a donation. So Belvedere was well represented in
You
this.
were very
effort.
well represented.
And I wanted to say that if for no other reason, and there are so many that were mentioned by everyone, your years of determination earn you this award. So in being able to use open space, that's really a true gift to the whole community. So thank you. I'll try not to trip on my way right there. You want to come out? Maybe we'll have a little photo session.
Sure.
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming. Great honor.
Thank you very much. We'll let you get back to the real business.
Thanks. Well, does anyone else have any comments here? Jeffrey?
I think I know Jerry more than everyone in the room. I met Jerry in 1974 in San Francisco. And he is the only person that I can ever remember who got things done all the time without a big pen. The only person.
There are no hands raised.
Well, thanks again so much for everything you've done for our community. Having usable open space is the best thing ever. So thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the consent calendar. The consent calendar consists of items that are considered to be non-controversial Unless any item is specifically removed by any member of the council, staff, or public, the consent calendar will be adopted by one motion. Council will take comment on all items on the consent calendar when the calendar is called. Do any council members have a question on any of our items tonight? I'll open it for public comment. Does anyone here have a question on any of the items or on Zoom?
There's no one on Zoom.
Okay. Then can I please have a motion to adopt items 4A through 4D on the consent calendar?
I can move that we move the consent calendar as reported in the staff report.
Second.
Second, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay. We'll now move on to public hearings. And item 5A is the introduction and first reading of the an ordinance of the City of Belvedere to amend Belvedere Municipal Code, Chapter 2.28 regarding the Planning Commission's composition and membership and accompanying amendments to the Administrative Policy Manual. I just had one procedural question. Does it make sense to complete the first ordinance and municipal code and then go on to the Administrative Policy Manual, or do you want us to try to ask questions and have discussion on both of them first?
I think either is probably fine. My preference would be for the latter, ask questions about the APM and the ordinance, and then we'll adopt both after. they're
Okay.
completed. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. In that case, does anyone have any questions for, oh, sorry, you have to give your staff report.
I do have a report. I'll make it quick.
I
Last month.
forgot to write that down.
I think everyone's pretty familiar with this one since we just heard it last month. There was a discussion at the city council to consider reducing the size of the planning commission. The public provided comment and council considered the efficiencies and challenges of a scaled back commission. The primary concerns related to the logistics of maintaining a quorum, given the small size of a population of Belvedere and the geographic landmass of our city. There were also concerns from city council, with a smaller body, the need for appointees to develop and maintain a good understanding of architectural principles and a familiarity with our code and state laws would become more important. The council ultimately directed staff to return in February with a draft ordinance that addressed these concerns. So this evening, the draft ordinance addresses those issues by reducing the planning commission from 7 to 5 members. It outlines the attendance expectations of commissioners. It also addresses recusal concerns by allowing the council to appoint up to 2 voting alternates. The ordinance requires that the alternates be prior planning commissioners, city council members, or members of a similar local agency in California. The ordinance also clarifies that 3 members of the planning commission constitute a quorum. The amendments to the APM have also been proposed that reflect these changes to the ordinance. So to clarify this evening, staff is asking for council to consider 2 things. First is approval of the draft ordinance, and then subsequently approval of the resolution amending Part 6 of the APM. So with that, I'm happy to take questions.
Okay, who would like to start? Kevin?
I have one question for you, Robert. Thank you for the report. Is in policy APM 6.1, it's 6-6 is the page number, or here it says, just tell me when you're there.
Yeah, I'm there.
Okay, it says in the middle, in addition, the planning commission may appoint up to 2 alternate members. Is that of the 2 that were approved by city council, or should that say city council?
It should say city council.
Okay.
Yeah. We can make that change.
That was the only thing. Everything else
Okay.
looked good to me.
Councilmember Wilkinson?
I have just a couple of quick questions. In the ordinance, it says the planning commission shall be expected to attend all scheduled planning commission meetings. I don't believe we state that in any other committees, do we? No. So why are we adding that specifically here?
Councilmember Wilkinson, I believe you are correct that we don't have similar language with respect to any other committees. We included that language to express the council's desire, to express a clear intent that all planning commissioners are intended to attend every possible meeting, and that alternates should just be a last resort if needed. But certainly, if you feel uncomfortable with that language, we can certainly take it out.
It seems just a bit open-ended. It doesn't say and what. You don't show up. So it just feels a little weird, particularly if it's not consistent with all the other committees that we have.
Yeah, I think keeping the language in or removing it is at the discretion of the council.
And then the second question I had was, in terms of appointing two alternates, what's the process there? What's the expectation?
I don't think there'd be fundamentally anything different versus the other appointments that the city council makes with respect to commissions.
But meaning is the intent to appoint those two people soon so that we're there if we approve this?
I think, again, that would be a decision for council about how quickly it wishes to move in appointing those alternates. And we were careful in the ordinance about saying also up to two.
Right.
Maybe if the council feels like only one is needed at any particular time, that's also a decision point for council to make.
And we should be discussing that tonight.
You can discuss it tonight, certainly, if you wish, or whenever the ordinance is finally adopted.
Okay, thank you.
Well, my presumption is that we wouldn't do it until the second reading, correct? And then it's at our pleasure, as it's written.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
I have a couple comments, but we're only taking questions now, I presume, right?
Right. Anyone else with a question?
So I have some questions. In the draft here, where it talks about the alternatives, you go into planning commission membership, as well as land use, public policy, landscaping, design, and architecture. And then you go on to the alternatives. And you have in here, I guess it's in the administrative policy part. You have in here that people who have previously served as planning commissioners, city council, or similar body for another local agency located in California. So my question is not to acknowledge the service by city council, past, present, or future members. But I don't think all city council members are familiar with the municipal code. And I think if we have somebody in the wings standing off to jump into a project, I think that they would need to be very familiar with the municipal code. And I know that right now we have 3 prior planning commissioners on the dais, but it's not always that many. And I don't know if just being a city council member would qualify as an alternative for a planning commissioner. I think that it needs to have a little bit more depth to it. I mean, I think if a city council member was a planning commissioner or had the other experience that you have in the municipal code as far as architecture, landscape, public policy, I mean, that also could fit. But I think that the municipal code, as it relates to planning, as someone who served on the planning commission, it takes a while to get your head wrapped around the municipal code. And I think if we're just every once in a while using this person, I don't know if just being a city council member would hold up, be beneficial to the planning commission to have somebody step in if they're not familiar with the municipal code. So that was mine. And then the only other thing is in here, I think it was in the administrative code, they said that there's no term limits for planning commission. And I think that in the current one, it says that after 3 terms, it's preferred that a planning commissioner step off for a period of time, doesn't say how long, but a period of time before. And I think that's a good policy. Otherwise, I think we run the risk of having a fiefdom. So those were, that was my, I guess, went into comments too, but that was my question, why we had city council. And why we changed the terms with no limit, where before it had said 3 terms.
Okay. I actually had a question on sort of around all those same words that everybody's looking at. The second paragraph that starts, in addition, the city council may appoint. And it says served on the planning commission, city council or similar body for another local agency located in California. What does that mean? What would be another local agency body?
So it'd be a planning commission, for example, another city of Marin.
Oh,
So someone
okay.
who's like on the Tiburon Planning Commission, Mill Valley Planning
Okay.
Commission, so on and so forth.
Okay. So it's referencing a planning commissioner, not necessarily the city council. It would be,
Or sure, we can, point well taken. We could say something like body similar to a planning commission. Or
Yeah,
a
I
planning
think I
commission
would-
for another
yeah.
local agency.
okay, that sounds good.
All right.
And then in the same spot, it says the chair of the planning commission shall decide. Does it seem appropriate to have the director of planning and building also be part of that decision if you needed the alternate or not? Or is there a reason not to?
Generally, there is collaboration between the director and the planning chair, so I don't think it's a bad thing to add that extra detail in there.
Okay,
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if there was a reason. And then on the APM, so we have in the first sentence, planning commission is comprised of 5 council appointed volunteers who have some professional background in architecture and design. It seems like we're cutting off our nose to spite our face, sort of. And I wonder if we could say as possible or who preferably or something in there to sort of, in case people don't, that we're not eliminating them from applying if it seems like they would be a good addition. But I don't know if there's a reason, or that's why it's a question.
Mayor Cooper, when we get to the comments, I've got some language comment
Okay.
suggestions
Oh,
for that
okay.
area when we get there.
I didn't know. Okay, good. Let's see. And sort of to get back to what Councilmember Wilkinson was saying, do we have any formal policy on how many meetings any committee member or commission can miss? Because I know that's a question that comes up a lot, but we don't have a policy about that, do we?
I'm not aware of
Okay.
adopted APM policy.
Okay. Okay, that's all for me.
If I may, Mayor,
Sure.
I did just want to go back and clarify one issue that you raised, and that is determining when an alternate is actually necessary for a given meeting.
Mhm.
The way that we drafted it, the intent was that would be the chair of the planning commission who makes that call.
Oh, okay.
So someone knows, someone has the responsibility of calling one of the alternates. We really need you at this particular time. Just so
Right.
we know, someone's ultimately responsible. for making
Okay,
that decision.
great. So that's why I was asking.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, then I'll open it up for the public. If anyone has any questions or comments on Zoom.
Yes, we have a hand raised. Oh, I apologize. No hands raised.
Okay. Okay, in that case, we'll come back for discussion. Councilmember Mark.
Do you mind if, I've actually got a lot of thoughts and comments on this. They weren't questions, so I held it to here. The first thing is, I think Councilmember Wilkinson is correct that we don't add any sort of attendance requirements to anything else. So it seems odd and peculiar in this circumstance. And I might suggest that in our broader policy 6.1, Before we jump into the responsibilities and term lengths, 6.1.1, I'm looking at page 6.2 in our staff report of the policy manual. Perhaps we could add a 6.1 period above 6.1.1 that is entitled purpose. And it says the purpose of this policy is to describe the size, terms, meeting schedule, specific appointment requirements, and responsibilities of the City of Belvedere council-appointed legislative bodies. All appointees are expected to attend as many meetings as possible, and all appointees serve at the pleasure of the City Council. Something along those lines, which makes it clear, applies to all committees and bodies, and makes it clear that you're expected to attend as many as possible, but not leaving out the possibility that should you not be able to make it, it's not unreasonable to do so. And that backing up by saying you serve at the pleasure of the City Council, which is addressed elsewhere in individual ordinances, but it makes it clear that you have, should you not attend, that's the option that you may be replaced. So that's a discussion point as far as, and I would remove it from the ordinance 2.28, 0.2, just remove that sentence from that. Again, looking at the first page of attachment A. I don't think it needs to be in there.
Yeah, I'm sorry, council member, just for the record, where did you want to insert your proposed language?
I think it could be 6.1 of policy 6.1 or 6.1.0, whichever or numbering scheme works better, before 6.1.1 at the very top purpose.
Got it. Thank you.
So that would be my comment about attendance. From a qualifications perspective, I wonder if, again, in the ordinance, I don't like the sentence, the alternate member, whether it's for the original appointment or the alternates. I don't like actually talking about at all serving on the previous planning commission, because I wonder if it should be more broad, generally speaking. And I'll go back to a point I made at the last meeting for discussion. I think alternates can be, and the city can benefit from one of two philosophies, one of it being an experienced planning commissioner or someone who's worked with the city and has the relevant experience that we talked about a second ago, filling in for a commissioner should they need it. I think it's also an opportunity as a second alternate to bring someone in who can learn more effectively being an alternate than as a member of the commission. They could attend the training, they could watch the meetings, perhaps ride shotgun with a current commissioner to meetings and so forth and watch how they deliberate. It could be a training ground that we don't have at this point in time. And if we exclude that option by making it a previous planning commissioner, someone with experience, we don't have that opportunity to appoint someone as an alternate. If we know, for example, a planning commissioner might be leaving at some point in time or their term is up, we might want to appoint an alternate 6 months prior to their term being up, knowing that they're going to depart. So that this new commissioner could learn with more deliberate on the job training. So that would be one opening up to that possibility. And I've got some language. Should we think that be a viable opportunity? As to specific language in the policy manual, I think that I'm reading now from in page 6.6. I would suggest the planning commission is comprised of 5 council-appointed volunteers who have some relevant, I'm adding relevant professional background, period. You say, you got to take architecture design is redundant with the following sentence. And then you're adding in making its appointments, the city council take out also shall consider the geographical diversity of the planning commission's membership, as well as their experience in land use, public policy, landscape design, architecture, or other community development experience. Broadening it so that we have, for example, this doesn't talk at all about an engineer, doesn't talk at all about a real estate broker, doesn't talk at all about a number of other relevant experiences that would be a planning commissioner could be successful with that background.
Since you're on that sentence, can I just jump in and say that I also, that exact same spot, I wondered if we could add, the city council shall also consider as possible, so that again, the diversity
Sure.
isn't necessarily an automatic, but it's,
Well, geographic diversity,
it-
it's not a possible, it's a requirement. I mean, with 5 planning commissioners, we're going to need
Need to
to
do-
required, I mean,
right,
having Claire, Nana, and myself, the last time, we wouldn't
Right.
have appointed those 3 to a 5-member body. Because we were within, 200 feet of each other. That would be a problem going forward.
mhm,
So I don't think it's
Okay.
impossible. I think I believe that's a requirement of a
Okay.
5-body planning commission. I had the comment that Councilmember Burke got with the city council. That's correct. I also wonder, my point about the alternates, both one, because it's last sentence where it says the alternate shall in the ordinance, it talks about the alternate having that the same planning commission experience. I wonder if we take it out in the front, but we add it here. I had a sentence at the bottom of after the first paragraph, when serving in the absence of any planning commissioner regular voting meeting, we put a sentence that says the intent of the planning commission or alternate positions is to provide experience depth in the case of recusal or absence, and to assist in the training and development of first-time planning commissioners. I think that if we want to do that, that's the place and the location where that could be added. So those are my points that I would add to this ordinance, obviously subject to the discussion here. Thank you.
does anyone want to react or have other comments?
I'll jump in. So I don't have a problem with Peter's suggestion in terms of also opening those positions up to potentially new planning commissioners, but I do think there should be a ranking that if there's only one, it has to be somebody with past experience. And then if there's a second one, then it could be somebody who's in training. So I think as long as the language can be adapted, I agree with that. I think we've sort of passed through it, but I agree with Pat's comment that city council members with no experience of planning should serve in this role in any capacity. So I think that's correct. And then in terms of term limits, I don't think we have any term limits on anything strictly, do we? There's not on the city council, there's just a sort of gentleman's agreement.
Yeah, correct. Just the gentleman's agreement, the assumption that you don't indefinitely hold the seat, you step off after a certain number of terms.
Yeah, and again, I haven't served on planning, so I'm interested in others' feedback, but my sense is always that there is a lot to learn on planning. So having some people on that have been there for a considerable period of time isn't necessarily a weakness. So my sense would be to leave that open in the way that we do with others, but maybe there's an informal, it's typical to only serve 2 terms, but leave that with some flexibility.
It does say under term limits, it says no lifetime limit, council members. Council encourages a hiatus after a consecutive 12 years of service, which is a long time.
But not required.
Yeah, it's not required. I mean, but again, that could be moved to 8.
Same language as with city council. It's kind of a gentleman's ladies agreement that.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I misunderstood then. You were saying so what was the amendment you were trying to
Well,
make?
Where it said no term limits, it doesn't say, that they can serve 12 years or 3 terms and then take a hiatus of a year or whatever, and then come back on. I mean, I think it's, if you have a really good planning commissioner, you hate to give them up.
Right.
But on the other side of the coin is if you have a planning commissioner that doesn't quite fit in to the commission, then the commission suffers for 16 years.
But they serve at the pleasure of the city council, so we always have the ability to encourage
That's a
those to
tough
move on.
one.
Agreed.
Well, there's
Maybe it's
actual,
something that we haven't done a good job of in the past.
and there's actual, you don't serve without a reappointment for 12 years. There's every 4 years, there's an actual process of reappointment. Which if there is any committee for that matter, if there's a struggle or a lack of effectiveness, the council would arguably not reappoint.
Is it written somewhere that there's a reappointment at every 4 years?
Mhm.
Oh,
You have to
okay.
The
reappoint.
4-year term, yeah.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, anything else? Councilmember Burke?
No, I mean, I think those, I really like the idea of opening something up for training, but agree with Commissioner, not Commissioner, Councilperson Wilkinson's comment about ensuring that we have at least one alternate who has the right experience. Do we need to specify anywhere that it can only be 5? I mean, or is that implied in that first sentence? Or clear enough in the percent? So could I, as the planning director, bring an alternate to a meeting and make it 6?
Oh, and it's at an agendized meet.
Yeah,
No, it would only be 5 voting members at a time.
okay. And that's clear based on that first sentence.
I believe so.
Okay. Great.
And so is the plan, when this comes back for a second reading, to then put out into the community that we're looking to appoint those people? Is that what's planned?
I think that'd be up to the discretion of the city council, whether they feel like we would benefit at this time from having, more alternates.
I would say yes.
Yeah.
And I think it should be noted that we've actually advertised for the openings because we were originally at 7, so there were 2 spots open. And that has been advertised consistently, and I think we may have gotten 1 or 2 applications in, and we can depending on how it goes, we can re-advertise, or we can look at the applications that have come in. Peter, could you, or Councilmember Mark, could you read your, or reread, I guess it's the last thing you said about the reason for the alternates?
Yes. And I can.
That an alternate would be there for, you had said.
Well, I
some-
was suggesting that we take out the sentence in the ordinance itself. The alternate member shall be a person who previously served on the planning commission, city council, or others similar body, blah, blah, blah. I
So
think
maybe we have to say one of the alternates should be this. That's what we're
yes. So
discussing.
I don't know that that's even necessary in that paragraph.
Oh, okay.
So I was getting to saying
On page 6.
in the
-6.
policy manual. And we need to make it clear that the first alternate is an experienced member and so forth. I suggested after the blue underlined text of that first paragraph, the intent of the planning commission alternate positions is to provide experience depth in the case of recusals or absences, and to assist in the training and development of first-time planning commissioners.
So I think,
So we need to come up with
yeah,
the first we could certainly say after the first alternate would be an experienced would be someone with planning commission experience, period. That seems reasonable to limit it to that.
and then I would like to suggest that actually the real reason for the alternates is to make sure we have a quorum for the meeting. I think that's the whole legal reason for having the alternates, is so that we have a voting quorum. Is that not correct?
Yeah.
I suppose that's something that the council could weigh on more specifically, whether you just need that third member to make quorum, or you want to make sure there's always a full complement of 5.
Because that's different.
Right, those are different thresholds.
Mhm.
But doesn't that fall, generally speaking, in your line where the planning commission chair has the discretion to call that person in? Because I would hope and think it's for both those purposes. They wouldn't require it if they only have 3, but I think a planning commission with 4 or 5 is better than a planning commission with 3.
Yeah, because it depends on the meeting as well. I mean, what if it's, there are only minor things happening, so why worry about bringing in 2 alternates versus just 1?
Yeah, I think that was our thinking as well, that we wanted to give that discretion, responsibility, and scope to the chair
Yeah.
to make the call in the first instance.
Okay.
The only other thing, just to be clear, I want to make sure everybody who's listening in is clear and in the room is that, so we're not saying, or the way I think you were proposing it be rewritten, that first underline in blue on 6.6, it's the people, individuals are not required to have this experience. The city council will consider that experience. So it's possible that we could decide for whatever reason that we're putting someone on the commission who doesn't have any of these experiences.
What I added is that first sentence, the planning commission is comprised of 5 council-appointed volunteers who have relevant professional background. Irrelevant. So that is a broader statement than the qualifications listed secondly.
Right. Yeah. I mean, relevant is, you could debate what's relevant.
Yeah, well, that's
Yeah.
open-ended because the second
But
sentence.
underscore that it's left
Yeah.
open-ended and yeah.
Yeah, because the second sentence says shall consider, which is again more expansive than.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so we do have quite a few amendments. Do you feel that this is still workable as the first reading? Since or do we need to?
If I may, Mayor, I think it'd be a little bit easier or at least for me to process down here if we consider the amendments to the ordinance separate from the APM. So if we could start with the ordinance and do one motion with the amendments requested by council. And I just want to make sure that we're being super precise when we bring the ordinance back for a second read. And then certainly the APM, I think, would be a second further discussion.
Okay.
So if you don't mind.
No, I had assumed we were going to do it that way.
City, if you don't mind, Mayor, I think the ordinance, if we were to strike through the person, the last sentence of the first paragraph in 2.28020, which is the will attend all planning meetings.
Right.
We've already discussed that. We can address that in the APM potentially. And I would suggest we take out the second sentence of the additions you have in the paragraph below that. The alternate member shall be a person who previously served on the planning commission, city council, and so forth. I think we can address it in the likewise in the APM with an intent paragraph and the language you've already discussed. So those 2 sentences, if they are eliminated, the ordinance looks fine.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty specific and clear comment, which this could probably carry that first reading.
Yes, thank you. That would be a very clear motion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, then do I have do I have a motion to what Councilmember Mark just said?
I can move us to approve the first reading of ordinance number 2502 as amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, sorry, aye also. Okay, so now we'll go on to the administrative policy manual.
I think that what Andrew was trying to suggest is that we can bring back, since we have to come back for a second
Oh,
reading anyway,
okay.
we'll bring back the APM changes that we've heard tonight.
Okay, so
and
you don't
insert them
need
again.
us to review those. You think you have them?
Is it clear enough for you, Andrew?
I can forward these notes. I've got a pretty clear write-up, and then you can reconcile them against the conversation this evening and see if it matches up and
We also have
edit
the-
as you see fit.
We have the audio record too, so we can reference that.
Right.
That would certainly work for us if everyone in the council is comfortable with that.
So the APM doesn't have to come back for a second reading, only the ordinance.
It will need to come back for a further approval, I think.
Right,
given the amount
further
of
approval,
changes.
but we can do it at the same
We-
time. Okay,
Correct. We can all do it at one meeting.
right, okay, great. Okay, then.
Thank you.
We can move on to the next scheduled item. And that is discussing and possible action concerning the priorities of the City of Belvedere Parks, Open Spaces and Lanes Committee. I think we have our Director of Public Works here to give the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, council members. As some of you are already aware, the Parks, Open Space and Lanes Committee provides annual reporting on the committee's priorities. Last November, the city's policy manual was amended to reduce the number of reports from 2 to 1 annual report, which will include progress made on previous priorities, along with identification and discussion of future priorities. This evening, the chair of the committee, Charlie Harrington, is with us to deliver the report. Before I hand over to him, though, I'd like to point out a typo on page 2, 12 lines down under lanes development, maintenance and repairs. The sentence, maintenance and repairs of lanes has continued with routine vegetation maintenance and identified repairs taking place on Cedar Lane and XXX. XXX should be Hawthorne Lane. And with that, I'll hand over to Charlie.
Okay, thank you. Our
Hello.
Chair of Parks, Open Space and Lane is Charlie Harrington. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you for having me. Would it be possible to pull up the report? And while that's happening, yeah, thank you all so much. My name is Charlie Harrington. I'm the chair of the Parks, Open Space Lanes Committee, which has an acronym which I've never been able to say, POSL. So I'll just say Parks Committee. And yeah, we are a group of Belvedere volunteers. We meet regularly as stewards for Belvedere's parks, open spaces and lanes. And I was preparing this report. I was kind of going back to what we were just talking about, the APM. And I looked into what the Parks Committee is responsible for. And there were really twofold things here: studying and providing community input into the parks, open spaces and lanes, specifically to protect them. And then the second thing was to develop them in a manner consistent with Belvedere's general plan and in the best interest of the city of Belvedere. So I use those as framing for this presentation in terms of what our responsibilities are. And the next thing I highlighted was, what exactly are Belvedere's parks, open spaces and lanes? I know as a citizen, I've looked at lane maps and I've seen 3 or 4 different versions of them with different numbers of lanes and things like that. And the APM says the real deal is on Exhibit 6 of the general plan. I've included that as Exhibit A. So use that as the sort of landscape with which our committee is meeting in terms of protecting and developing these different assets for the city. So if we could scroll down slightly, thank you. So yeah, our duties, oh, can we go up one? I wish I was controlling this, I'm sorry. Actually, I have it here, I'll just read it. Our duties are fourfold in the APM. One is to provide recommendations to staff and city council. That's what we're doing right now. Another duty is to provide a status report on last year's measures and priorities. I know that Tony said those 2 things were just smushed together. So today's presentation will be a combination of those 2 things, both a report on last year and then a report on our priorities. Another one of our priorities and responsibilities is to provide recommendations to the Planning Commission and regarding any proposed project directly affecting those things in Exhibit 6 of the general plan. And then the 4th thing would be to undertake any studies or reporting that the city council or city staff may request. Again, I think that is really important as it relates to us being as an asset and stewards and volunteers for the city and the council. So our committee has had a long history of providing input into protection and development of the plans aligned with the general plan. And the last thing I wanted to highlight was, as I was reading the general plan, which is an amazing document, and I really do wish everyone in the entire city received a copy when they get the keys to their house. But the vision statement was this I wanted to share: preserve the special and unique sense of place while allowing changes that would enhance the community. So it was pretty amazing to see that as the vision statement for Belvedere. And I trust that today's report will be aligned with that vision statement. Okay, so now going into this section here, recapping 2024 priorities and results. When I've been on the council for 2 years now, and last year after the presentation, we received feedback from city staff and city council that we provided a large scope of priorities. And it was difficult to understand what the Parks Committee's true priorities were. And so we've been given that challenge to hone our priority list this year. And that's what I've tried to do. So you'll see after I go through what we put on our list last year, our 2025 responsibility or priorities, we mean to be specific, clear, actionable, and strategic. So we're listening to council, we're listening to city staff, and we want to present something that we think is pretty clear to understand what those priorities are for this committee this year. Okay, so let's look at last year. I think this will be an opportunity where, as I read through these, Tony, if you'd like to chime in on anything or answer any questions, but I'll give a recap of the 7 things we prioritized last year. I could also stop and answer questions about them, or Tony may be able to. But last year we had 7 priorities. The first one was lane maintenance, repairs, and development. Then there was Park Lane, Artist View, Centennial Park, public views, vegetation and tree management, this is like a tongue twister, private projects on public lands. So those were our 7 priorities last year. I'll go through and read an update. So this will count as the report on what the city was able to accomplish last year. And again, Tony has made himself available for questions. So with regard to lane development, maintenance and repairs of lanes has continued with routine vegetation and identified repairs taking place on Cedar Lane and Hawthorne Lane. Great.
Yes.
Repairs to utility box on McLean and a new transition to the stairs at Cedar Lane. So I think with that, with respect to that, I think Department of Public Works has been maintaining a list of priorities among the different lanes that need repair. You'll see later our suggestions for 2025 and beyond. So maybe I'll stop there. Are there any questions about item number 1? I can just go through. Okay. Park Lane design and engineering is complete, including the adjusted elevation of a seating platform. That was really cool because that was an opportunity where the Planning Commission and the Parks Commission worked together to solve an interesting problem. So that's amazing. Tony notes that there's a funding gap that has resulted as a result in this scope, and we're searching for additional grant opportunities. But having had a discussion around that, construction is still anticipated to begin this spring, which is really great. I think the Park Lane project has been going on for several years now, and everything that I understand has led me to believe that I think it's in a positive place for breaking ground this year. On Artist View, the priority from last year, there were no new developments. On Centennial Park, some may know that at least the wooden stair portion on the upper end of that are in need of repair. Last year, conceptual drawings were created, and they will be discussed and reviewed with the committee along with other ongoing maintenance to lanes and open space. With respect to public views, this request last year was largely around the view easements, I think on West Shore Road where this really came from. Public Works is continuing to maintain vegetation for them. Committee remains committed to evaluating options with Planning Department to improve or eliminate view instructions on these private view easements. I think a lot of people don't even know where they are, so maybe there could be something we could do around that, but it's great that Public Works and Planning are on that. With respect to vegetation and tree management, routine maintenance and removal continues. I won't go through and read all of that, but it's great to see that continue. And then private projects on public lands, a priority for last year. And as it relates to our committee's ongoing relations with planning, we continue to meet regularly. And I think I highlighted the Park Lane project as an area where I think that collaboration worked really well. Okay.
Before you do 2025, can we ask questions on 24?
Sure.
Just one quick question for, I think, Tony, you on Park Lane. What is the funding gap?
Well, okay, so what we went out to bid at the end of last year and received the lowest bid we received was $186,000. We have in our budget a total of just over 110,000. And that was based on an estimate from the city's concrete contractor that unfortunately missed a few details in the plans. Yep, so that's what the gap is.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
Any other questions at this point? Okay.
Perfect.
On to
Okay.
2020. Oh, well, I'll do the public comment at the end of both.
Great.
portion.
So while these are all important, the Parks Committee met and we realized we could eliminate at least 3 of these immediately from our 2025 priorities to make things a little bit more clear, because Department of Public Works is already handling vegetation and tree management. And then we have both the public views and private projects on public lands. We believe that that is covered by the ongoing responsibility of the chair to continue to meet with planning. So we can sort of wipe those away from 2025. And then I gave the update on Park Lane. So I think that we largely believe that that's ongoing and in a good place, which then paves our way into 2025's priorities, which again, we're trying to be specific, clear, strategic, and actionable. So we discussed these in November on the 6th. We met and approved them, and then also approved this letter on December 4th, our committee. And the 2 priorities are as follows: develop an ADA accessible viewing platform at Artist View near the top, and then continue supporting ongoing lanes development, maintenance, repairs, including the Centennial Park. So we've been able to take the 7 priorities of last year and winnow them down to 2 things here. We believe that these priorities are aligned with the focus on safety and community engagement, and also adhere to the vision statement for the city of Belvedere. Okay, I'll go into the next, the 2 priorities here. So 1, develop an ADA compliant viewing platform at Artist View. So I've been doing fun research in the Landmark Society and in other places, buying used books from the library about the history of Belvedere. And I realized that on November 1st, 1976 was the date that Artist View, the property at the southern end of Belvedere, was donated to the city. So if you actually look at next year, 2026, it will be the 50-year anniversary of the deed being donated to the city. And if you looked at the deed, what the city council under the mayor accepted was that this land be used for scenic, open space, and hiking purposes, and no improvements will be made that are inconsistent with such uses as hiking, scenic, and open spaces. I think it's really interesting that this priority that's been around for a long time is now nearing a 50-year opportunity for the city to do something pretty special. So the next reason why we think this is important, it is a safety opportunity. Right now, Artist View is inaccessible to the public. There's no safe access points other than dropping down from that sort of fence. The views from the street are often blocked by construction vehicles, forcing citizens to take in the scenic beauty of Artist View from busy Beach Road. It's unsafe right now for citizens to appreciate and enjoy. It's certainly not ADA accessible in order to take in the scenic beauty of Artist View. And then the third reason why we thought this was an interesting thing to continue to be a priority was the funding opportunity. The city of Belvedere has been allocated a Proposition 68 per capita program of $177,952 that must be used on a development project that meets these criteria. There's a bunch of criteria here. I can go through them, but if you look at the criteria related to the Artist View project, we really do hit all of these. Parcel with a parcel number, owned by the city, deed restriction of 30 years on parcel using Prop 68, recreational open space, must be ADA compliant, et cetera. So with these 3 things in mind, the fact that we're nearing the 50-year anniversary of this project that's been an important priority for the Parks Committee for a really long time, this ongoing focus on safety, the funding opportunity that we have at our doorstep right now, we believe that our specific and clear and actionable recommendation would be to propose the development at conceptual phase right now of an ADA compliant viewing platform for completion no later than mid-2026. This would be a use case consistent with the deeded preservation of the natural scenic beauty of Artist View that enhances safety, enhances accessibility of Artist View for our community. We believe that if council's interested in proceeding with this concept, we could engage with a landscape architect. What we're really thinking about at a high level is maybe a small viewing platform at the top with 1 or 2 benches there that would be accessible, that you kind of get off the road, out of the dangerous road, take in the beauty, and go on with your day. I'll note that we're aware there have been prior efforts with Artist View. We acknowledge and appreciate that history. We do believe that what we're presenting is a unique opportunity and responsibility to live up to the vision statement of Belvedere. So specifically, I know we're headed into budget season. We would ask that City Council account for this 20% match needed in the grant, and permit city staff to pursue this project as a capital infrastructure project. And with this funding, with the core funding of the state grant in place, along with our committee's singular focus on this one project for next year, we believe that having this dedicated focus will help us raise any additional funds that may crop up over time. So yeah, that is the top priority for the year. So one project, one ADA compliant viewing platform, one once in a year, 50-year opportunity. The second priority here would be continuing supporting ongoing lanes development, maintenance, and repaired. Our famous and historic walking lanes it's amazing that we still have them and we've been able to preserve them. They're important sources of open space and recreation, but they're also really important arteries for safety. I heard tsunami was brought up. In the event of sort of cataclysm on the lower levels, folks can retreat upwards to higher ground. Similarly with fire, it presents an opportunity to get down to water and safety. So we believe that preserving these is not only important for recreation, but also important for safety. City is already committed to improving the lanes, and at this point, we're asking the city to continue supporting these improvements. I've noted here, it looks like 5 bullet points of things that the city staff is aware of that are in need of some repair. We'd ask that the budget be maintained for this. And I'd also like to highlight that the Parks Committee has established a lanes subcommittee. This subcommittee is meeting really to aid in the preparation of an updated survey of the lanes. So we are going to go around, look at Exhibit 6, look at every one of those 30 some odd lanes, take photos, try to assess the caliber of the handrails, if some of the steps are crumbling away, and then present that back to city staff and city council as an asset. From my digging, it looks like this has been done roughly every 10 years. I have this amazing typeset version from 1986 that I got in the Landmark Society. We want to make one for 2025. So we hope that this can eventually become a living document. And then we also see this as an opportunity to even produce a walking map. I just bought a walking map from the city of Mill Valley of their public lanes and stuff. And it's an amazing little thing that I think, again, we could make accessible to the public. So again, our second priority there is maintaining ongoing development of lanes. As soon as that study is available, I can come back to council and present it. If it comes in too late for budget for this year and we discover that some other lane needs repairs, the lanes aren't going anywhere, so it could be done next year too, but we're really excited about bringing this asset back to city council and city staff. Okay, I believe that's it. Yeah, next steps. Happy to go into either of the two priorities for 2025 or answer questions about last year. Parks Committee is available and we'd be interested in forming a subcommittee to help and look into this artist view concept. And of course, we'll be back as soon as we have the lane survey. So thanks everyone for their time and attention. It's been really fun being a part of this committee, and also it's been really fun to be in this meeting today. So thank you all, and I'm looking forward to your questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, do we have any questions for either our Director of Public Works or for Charlie?
I have one.
Okay.
So in the grants 68 or 68 grant, whatever, it says it has a deed restriction for 30 years. Is that a new deed restriction that would have to go on, or would the existing deed restriction suffice? Do they have a specific deed restriction they like to see? Do we know?
My understanding is that the property just has to show a clear title record that it was deeded to the city, and that has to be on record for 30 years. So going back to 1976, it meets that criteria.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I have a few questions.
Member Wilkinson?
So on the second part first, in terms of this general review of the lanes, which is high for Charlie, which is a fantastic idea to do an inventory. Is your idea that what you'll come back with is sort of a medium-term funding plan for those? It's not just going to be a one-year budget request, because we have so many constraints, mostly in terms of staff constraints, just to even implement what we've already approved. Because I think that would be the useful thing, is to give us a medium term, this is what we think.
I view this as a living document with which prioritization can be made and decisions can be made year over year. So we can look at every single lane, and we're not saying we'll come back, we need to fix all of these next year. I think it would just be a living asset that as things change with respect to the lanes in needs of maintenance, we can act accordingly.
Yeah, because we're always looking out 5 years with funding, so sort of knowing on a 5-year basis what that looks like.
Yeah, maybe what we can do is prioritize amongst them over a 5-year span, and that would be a useful exercise.
Okay. The second question was more for staff, which is that this proposal on artist view is on the basis of a grant being available. When do we have to have completed this project for those funds to, for us to be eligible for those funds?
If I'm not mistaken, it's by the end of 2027.
So if we haven't finished, if it's not, if we went ahead with this and it wasn't completed by then, we would get $0 of that grant and we would be in the hole for all of it? Or would there be some, how would that work?
I'm not 100% sure, but I think reimbursement is for work that was done before the end of the period. So
Period of the construction. Yeah, and performance period of the grant itself.
And will they only pay for the construction portion of the project rather than all of the legwork and everything else that has to be done?
no, I believe they do include design and engineering as part of the reimbursement.
And legal?
I don't know about legal.
It does
we'd have to find
include
out.
staff time as well.
Okay. Okay, and just to make sure I understand again how this grant might work, we would have to put the money up front for the project and then they reimburse on an ongoing basis, or just on on the completion of it again?
I think it could be either way. We would have to pay the contractor ourselves or contractors, and then we would apply for reimbursement, after that's been done.
So we just have to factor that in terms of our cash flow that we'll be potentially putting that money up front.
Yes, yeah.
And then the other question is in relation to CEQA. Can you guide there in terms of what likely would or would not be required in relation to CEQA?
Well, we typically as we did for Park Lane, we have a CEQA consultant that we would work with to make sure that we are complying with the law. In the case of Park Lane, the project was exempt, but we would rely on a consultant to kind of guide us with those with that kind of information.
So this most likely would be exempt, is your assessment?
I wouldn't like to say too soon in the process because we don't know how big it's going to be. We don't know if there are going to be any changes to parking. It's really we don't have anything on paper. I think the ideal situation would be that it is exempt from CEQA. Yeah.
Okay. And then the other, I know you haven't really started the drawings in any meaningful way, but the idea, I think, is that it opens up the view, correct? That people can stand on this platform and it opens up the view. Walking past that on a pretty regular basis, it's pretty busy and the trees are pretty high. So how high are you expecting this platform to be able to look over those trees and see something?
My understanding, and Charlie can definitely join me on this, but my understanding that it'll be more or less street level. So you'd be able to walk from the street onto the platform.
But then what will you see? Because it's just the same.
Oh, I was just there today.
Okay.
I hopped down and I actually stood on those PG&E boxes that are there. They're
Right.
kind of gross, but you have a beautiful view. You're not over every single tree. We're not like thinking about something in the canopy, but even if you're standing right on top of those PG&E boxes, it's spectacular. So I think something at that level still presents you this amazing view of one of the coves of Angel Island, the Bay Bridge, and beyond. So
you can really see down to the water, and you
can sort of see rumbling things down. Obviously, there's some vegetation that closes in certain times of year to not see the shoreline right there, but you really can see the water, and it's very nice.
Okay.
I might have a photo I took from that position. But I don't know if we're getting at, do I think that trees lower down would need to be touched? I personally don't think so. I think you sort of leave it as is. You sort of create a platform right there, largely where the PG&E stuff might be, or adjacent to that. And I still think you have quite the view.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one quick clarification. And Charlie, thank you for this. Very, very informative and helpful. Just to, I guess this is a question or a clarification from our city staff. We're not being asked to approve anything or any specific project necessarily. We're being asked to authorize the further study of this and perhaps the consideration of a budget item in the 25-26 fiscal year. And that, again, to clarify that if and when this project is further studied and deemed to be both worthwhile and able to be done, it would have its normal review process through both the financial review and a planning commission review and management board would come to the city council at that point.
Yes, that's correct. At a minimum, we bring it back at its late stage to city council to approve the construction contract, but we could certainly, after going to the planning commission, present the final findings and the project plan to city council as well for review.
So there will be plenty of opportunity for public comment throughout its development process and
Yeah,
ultimate
this
approval.
won't be the last time we discuss
Yes,
it.
thank you.
I have the picture if you want to see from. This is, I'm just standing on PG platform here. So you can see the rolling hills going down, you can see some further shrubs and the water. And that was just taken an hour ago.
I was there today too.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, are there any other questions? No, let me see if I had any. I think they all got answered. Okay, then I'll open this up for, by the way, Charlie, thank you for the nice organization. Very easy to comprehend and nice and clear going forward. If there's any comments from the public? Welcome. I'd just like to note that each person that comes up has 3 minutes to present. And if you'd like to give us your name.
Yeah, my name is, hi, Mayor Cooper.
Hi.
Shall I speak here? Hi, Mayor Cooper and council members. My name is Klaus Johansmeyer. I'm Carl Johansmeyer's son who owns property in that area of Artist View. And I first of all, just wanted to thank you for accepting the public records request. I think it's super important to have transparent and good trust in your government. Make sure due diligence is being done and so forth. So thank you for that. I won't take too much of your time because we're on the record for Artist View going back to 2018. But we're against developing a small place like Artist View that's wedged between homes on all sides, because we think that it's an attractive nuisance or has the potential to be one, as well as contributing to fire danger in the area. I don't need to tell you about Palisades or Sonoma, Napa, Oakland Hills, or that half of Angel Island burned down. You know that. We objected to Artist View because we think that no neighbor should have to put up involuntarily with that increased risk of human-caused fire danger. Full stop. The Martha property is what I think about when someone says open space. And I think it's amazing that we have collectively bought that. Now, the genesis of Artist View, going back to 1968, raises the question with this deed restriction that it shall not be open to general public, the Mason Wells deed notwithstanding, right? Building a bench is an effective invitation. And, when invited, people don't stay at Artist View, Recall the Parks and Open Space survey and explicit invitation that caused the whole committee to be reorganized, was trespassing from public lands onto private lands without any restriction or fence or anything, which I have on video, by the way. I can provide that should you like to see it. I also think it's kind of ridiculous that Park Lane, which was 9 wooden stairs and a bench, has ballooned to $186,000. I assume that Artist View would be similar, but that's what I have to say. Thank you.
My name is Olivia Decker. I've been living in Belvedere since 1976. And my first home was right next to Parkland. I lived next to Parkland for 18 years, put up always the people up and down the staircase for 18 years. Right now, I live right next to the Golden Gate Lane, which you know which one that is. I really don't understand why are we spending the city money and sacrifice the safety of our homeowners locally right here in Belvedere and open up our space. And we're not open space. For example, the Artist View, it's a tiny little slip of land between 2 homes, which I sold to Klaus and his parents. In between the other side is #1 Landing, which I'm selling right now. These are people's home. They live right next door. Very slip piece of land. Why are we open to the public? And I don't know if you ever talk to the people walking on those stairs or lane. I talk to them quite often. They're not locals. Many people came from outside, a lot of Tiburon people, Mill Valley people, Corte Madera, San Francisco people, some of the people coming from all over the place and come to see our view. There are other people, other places to see the view. Tiburon have hundreds of acres. You can go there, enjoy the view. Belvedere have a park. We have a Bayfront Park right by the ferry, beautiful views. There's other place to see the view, walking on the street. But why hang around on a piece of land or stairs right next to people's home? I was living above Jerry Gant's lot, the lava lot, for many, many years. And you see people, outsiders, come in, drink beers, wine, smoke dopes. They caused fire several times, by the way. It happened to be Jerry Gant's didn't have much trees to burn, all lavas. But it could be a total disaster in case of fire. And Belvedere have so much bushes and trees and landscaping can easily cause fire. I sold many homes. By the way, I own a real estate company at Golden Gate South Beach, 22 offices. And we have 2 in Tiburon. I have 2 in Napa Valley. Many of my homes I sold in Napa Valley burned down. In 2017, 4 of the homes I sold burned down. In 2021 and 22, the fire. Several really incredible homes burned down. Mark Benioff's home, he's chairman of Salesforce in Napa Valley, burned down to the ground. George Atamura, biggest landowner, property owner in Napa Valley, his own home burned down. I sold those homes to those people. Very, very devastating. So please be considerate. It's people's home. We live there. My sister lived at 424 Golden Gate. I have 3 homes right now in Belvedere, right around those lands, and right about the last block of Golden Gate, right above the Artist View. And all the other people, I sold over 120 homes in Belvedere over the last 42 years, including Kevin's home, too. I sold him 2 homes. So these are people. They pay a lot of money for this home to have a view and pay a lot of property tax, you can imagine. And they shouldn't be put up with the worries. It's scary. Every day I worry the fire. Every day I drive home to Belvedere. Those winding roads, even on a normal day, you have to let the car pass. It couldn't pass the road safely or straight go home. Always you have to stop and let somebody, truck or whatever. Just think of a fire. Think of fire.
We're thinking about that a lot.
Absolutely. We are not an open space. We're not a park. Belvedere is residential. It shouldn't have, we already have so many lands, so many stairs. We don't need one more piece. It's really, really dangerous. With global warming, just, fire danger gets worse and worse every year, as you know that.
Thank you very much.
Look at those burned down fire home, and that's what we really should worry. It can happen just like that. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. I know that in your office, you actually share a lot of the maps of the lanes.
Yes,
So
we
that when
do.
you have people from out of town, they're able to come and get a map from you.
We do.
Okay.
But we just don't need one more lane,
Okay.
And so that's just, it's very dangerous. Yeah.
Thank you.
By the way, we also broker the open space in Tiburon. So we are the broker for the sale of Tiburon open space. And I'm very happy that happened because
Thank you.
that's where everybody should go enjoy the view.
Thanks again. Okay, are there any comments on Zoom?
There are no hands raised.
Anyone else here in the public? No? Okay, then I'll,
Mayor Cooper, I apologize. Somebody did just
Okay,
raise their
sure.
hand. I'm sorry. Theo Henry.
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me okay?
yes, please go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, great. My name is Christian Henry. I been living in Belvedere since 2004. And I am finishing up rebuilding the house next door to Artist View at 1 Blanding Lane. And I've been a resident of Belvedere and have loved living there for years and years. And I'm really concerned about the development of Artist View. I love open space. I love the view, and people should enjoy the view. I'm concerned about the side effects of what could happen with the development of Artist View. I'm living currently down in Southern California while we build the house, and we just we're on the cusp of our house burning down. And so I've got firsthand experience of what it's like to be involved with a wildfire. And I'm really concerned about what could happen in Belvedere. It happened in Palisades so fast, within an hour, in a day, the whole place just burned down. And I'm concerned if there's adequate water and resources. If there is a fire, I think all that needs to be researched and really looked at. Do we have enough resources to put the fires out if there is a fire? I'm also concerned about the what the original owner of the property wanted. I understand there's a deed restriction on the property, and his original intent was to have open space and to have it not developed. And putting a huge platform next to the roadway there is an invitation for riffraff, people coming from out of town smoking pot, lighting fires, kids hanging out, noise. And it's something that can't be taken lightly. And it's for these reasons, I think there needs to be a real hard look taken at this. But I'm mostly concerned about the fires, just recently been involved in that. And it's a big deal. And there's so much vegetation around there, it could just ignite immediately. And then are there enough resources to put it out? Where are the people going to go? If they have to get out, the short, windy roads, it's very, very difficult to build there. I've spent the last 2 years, dealing with contractors. Nobody wants to work there. It's impossible to work there, to get there. The restrictions on building in Belvedere are really, really difficult. And it's a beautiful place, and it should be preserved. And I don't believe it should be further developed with a platform, sticking off like a sore thumb off the road. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. Anybody else?
There are no other hands raised.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then we'll bring it back to the city council for discussion. I did have one question that was continues to be brought up. And I know that all of us here did review the deed from Mr. Wells to the city council in 1976. But I wondered if you believe there are any constraints to this deed, given what you've heard tonight about a platform, and if you think that the uses presented by Parks Open Space and Lane are consistent with the deed, or?
Yes, that one.
See you dodging on the way to the microphone. Yeah, I would simply have to agree with what Charlie set forth before the council during his presentation. He described the deed restriction presented in the Mason Wells grant deed to the city back from November 1st, 1976. I agree with him that that language controls with respect to this project. And I know we're not sort of close to any final drawings for the proposed project, but based on my understanding of the general scope, I believe the proposed use is also consistent with those restrictions.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
No problem.
Okay, would anyone like to begin the discussion?
Could I ask one quick
Sure.
further clarifications? And Tony, I know, or Charlie, you don't have plans yet, but have you reviewed property boundaries in any way? Charlie, you mentioned the PG&E platforms. Those platforms, by my, looking at a site plan here, are on city property. So have you just ascertained how much of this proposed platform would be on, by city property, I mean the right of way in the street, not the City of Belvedere property itself, that is the parcel. How much of this would be on the parcel? Is that a requirement of the fund? Does it have to all be on the parcel, or how much of it would be on the city right of way, which isn't necessarily parcel ID?
I can jump in. Yeah, so it is a requirement of the funds that it shouldn't be in the right of way. It has to be on a parcel. We've taken a look at it was a couple of months ago now, a survey. The edge of the right of way is actually much closer to the street than it would seem. Those PG&E boxes are actually on the parcel. They're not in the right of way. Yeah. Yeah, so there would obviously need to be access to the platform or the deck, and that would come into the right of way. But I imagine most of it would be on the property of the parcel.
Thank you. Which I guess is necessary for the funding.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
But subject to the deed, therefore.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, anyone else? Any other council members?
Are we comments?
Discussion, yes,
Yeah.
comment. Yeah.
So a couple of separate things. The first would be, even when some plans get developed, some clearer idea of budget will be important, because there's only $200 and something thousand here. And given that everything we do seems to run 2x at least, we would really need some very clear parameters there to ensure that we don't have a big budget request down the line that we weren't anticipating. So that would be an important aspect. And then the other thing I would say and would encourage is that Belvedere has a very long history of involving neighbors in any type of development, whether it's an individual home or Mallard Point or anything that's ever happened in this town, to talk to neighbors and try and find some kind of compromise that everybody is potentially satisfied with. So I would encourage Charlie and whoever else is leading this and staff to really try and engage with local residents to see if there's any kind of project that will work.
Yeah, if I could just comment, I think that is definitely guidance we will take. We wanted to present this as a concept. This has been a continuation of something that's been on the list for the Parks Committee for a while, and we believe we presented a concept that could be amenable, and we're looking forward to engaging with the community and understanding how to make this work.
Anyone else with a comment?
So along the lines of Councilmember Wilkinson, I think that immediate neighbors are always important, but I think outreach to the overall community would be important, because you could probably maybe get some good feedback that you can incorporate. And I think that if there was a concept drawing of what you were talking about, that it might be easier for people to comprehend, because, you know, is it going to go across the whole width? Is it only going to be this like little section? How, you know, how big are you talking? How deep, you know, are you talking? So I think if there was a concept drawing out there that people could actually see and then understand a little bit better of what actually is being proposed, I think would be helpful. I agree that, you know, there should be some rough estimates along the lines, so that we don't get into the same position we are with Park Lane, because we're on a tight schedule. So I think that there's a lot of legwork there that I think can maybe address some of the angst, exactly what you're proposing.
Councilmember Burke.
Yeah, I agree with what's been said already. I do think, I mean, we're not being asked to make a decision tonight. I think it's really about just giving feedback. And I mean, having a project plan, as the other council members have discussed, would be incredibly helpful on many fronts. I mean, you're going to need that anyways to, I think for us to put any kind of dollar amount in the budget, I think we would need that to feel more confident. When is that decision made in terms of the budget, since I'm newer to the council? It's in June.
The final budget's approved in June.
Yeah. I mean, so there's not a lot of time, but I think getting some more specifics would be helpful in order for us to agree to put it into the budget with confidence. I think right now I don't have enough information to say, you know, we should, because it's too open-ended. I mean, some of the other questions that people have raised, I would just say coming back with those answers would be helpful in terms of CEQA, how the grant gets paid, what if we don't finish, you know, do we get partial reimbursement? I'm also concerned, as has been raised just based on Park Lane, that that doesn't sound like a lot. It sounds like a bigger project than Park Lane, and Park Lane's already at 186. I mean, it sounds like a $400,000 project to me. I mean, I don't know. It just seems a lot more expensive than what you're planning to do with one bench on Park Lane, and that changes the calculus for me significantly. So anyways, yeah, we need more information, but I really love the work that you're doing. I love that you're passionate about it. I love that you guys are really focused in on things, on more specific priorities this year. And I know you're doing it all in the service of the community, so we can enjoy this beautiful community even more. So thank you.
Thank you. So I'd probably recommend that we accept the Parks and Open Space and Lanes Committee's priorities and take their suggestion to study it further, right? And limit it at that.
Can I wanted to make one other point. I really did hear the concerns about fire, given what did happen before at the lava lots, and given that it's empty and we've just had a house burned down, and we were just lucky that someone happened to be driving home to see that fire take off. So I'd really dig into that in terms of what sort of risks really exist there, and are there any mitigations in relation to that as well?
Absolutely. And I think, you know, keeping the lanes I mentioned as arteries in situations of emergency, whether you're going up or down, I think is something that, you know, reverberates through these recommendations. So.
And I think I'd just like, I know it may seem frustrating that the Parks and Open Space hasn't had a full proposal developed at this time, but I think it's appropriate and really a good process to go through for us to hear what the idea is and be able to comment before putting together a proposal and then coming to the city council. I think it's always important to come for not just Parks and Open Space, but every committee to come first to us and let us know what ideas are, and then we can go ahead and say yes or no to the appropriate committee based on what we learn. And I think that's part of what our job is. So I think this was a concept presentation, and taking everybody's, the public's and council's questions and concerns will allow the committee to develop a full proposal and actually come back with that. And I did, just for clarification for the public, I just wanted to note that in Belvedere, we actually have a zone called open space, and there are definitions to that zone, just like a residential zone. We have an open space zone. So you might want to understand that this, the idea of just open space being out there isn't quite the same as perhaps you're thinking with the Martha property. And certainly it is considered, it is zoned open space, and it is part of our city, and it's on our maps as open space. So again, thank you, Charlie. I'm going to assume that we can move forward then with the council's questions and comments taken seriously, and it'll go back to Parks, Open Space and Lane Committee, and then come back to the council once the proposal is done.
That sounds great. Thank you so much. I really
Okay.
appreciate everyone's thoughtful comments, and I think we have a special opportunity, and we will preserve the unique character of Belvedere in this suggested proposal. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks again. Okay, we'll move on to item 6B, which is a discussion and possible action on a revocable license for private improvements in the public right of way. For the
Excuse me,
prop-
my apologies, Mayor.
Oh, sorry.
We just wanted to clarify down here whether there was a second on Councilmember Mark's motion on the last item.
I'll second.
Oh, did we need that?
Yes.
Isn't it just guidance?
Isn't it just guidance? that we're giving?
It's certainly up to the council. If the
Well,
council
you
does not
said
want to make a motion
accept their,
item, that's
yearly
entirely up to council.
proposal.
We just wanted clarity.
I just suggested that we accept. Sorry, that we accept the recommendations and priorities as outlined in Charlie's memo, and that we, to the degree that we authorize it, we authorize their further study. And to take Councilmember Burke's and Wilkinson's consideration that we're not prepared to sort of direct the budget to be allocated in any way as of yet.
Okay, my apologies if I misunderstood. I thought you were making a motion, but
No, it's just a
just guidance.
guidance from the entire council.
Yes, received. Thank you very much.
Sure. Sage guidance. It's always sage guidance. Okay, back to revocable license for private improvements in the public way along San Rafael Avenue for the property at 2 Golden Gate.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you,
Sammy.
Mayor Cooper and council members. For your consideration this evening is a revocable license application to allow existing private improvements within the San Rafael Avenue right-of-way for the property located at 2 Golden Gate Avenue. On September 17, 2024, the Planning Commission approved design review, variance, and exception to total floor area applications to construct a residential addition at 2 Golden Gate Avenue. As a condition of the approval, the commission required the applicant to remove or relocate all fencing from city property onto private property. The site currently has 2 fences on city property. One, a 5-foot tall fence located in the Golden Gate Avenue right-of-way, and a second, which is 6 feet tall and runs adjacent to San Rafael Avenue. Here, the applicant requests a revocable license to allow existing improvements within the San Rafael Avenue right-of-way. These include 2 storm drains, a 2-foot tall wood retaining wall, and landscaping, which consists of a 10-inch in diameter oak tree, 12-inch juniper, and assortment of smaller trees. Staff recommends that the findings can be made for revocable license. The landscaping enhances the aesthetic qualities of the streetscape. The drain helps regulate the flow of stormwater through city land, and the retaining wall helps stabilize this hillside above San Rafael Avenue. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from the council? I just had one question on the trees that you just mentioned. Are those existing trees, or are they planning on planting those trees?
All existing.
All existing, okay. Thanks for the clarification.
Just real quick, Sammy, I know you mentioned it, the removal of the fences as a where you have existing landscaping to be retained, wouldn't that fence, shouldn't that be, maybe it's blocked out under the city of Belvedere there, but shouldn't that be identified as being removed in the revocable license plan? It might be that little triangle down below on the bottom left.
I see where you're talking about. We had a previous exhibit that showed the fence and had them remove it. So it was clear that the RL, should it get approved, was being approved without the fence. And I think this is just one little spot that we didn't catch where it says wood fence. So our intention is that there is no mention of the wood fence in this RL area, and we can have them amend that.
No, I was just asking because you clearly went the strategy to not show it at all as opposed to show it being removed. Whichever way, if that's the way you're going, that's great.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any questions from the public here? No, on Zoom?
No hands raised.
Okay, great. Would anyone want to comment, or should we go right to a motion?
Want me to-
Can I have a motion to approve a revocable license for 2 Golden Gate Avenue for the existing improvements in the San Rafael right-of-way?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay. Moving along to item 6C is a discussion and possible action on the fiscal year 2024 through 2025 mid-year budget review. And our Director of Finance, Administrative Director of Finance, will be presenting.
So good evening, Mayor Cooper and council members. This mid-year budget review is for our current fiscal year 24-25 and will focus primarily on the general fund. My presentation will provide a brief overview of the city's budget as of December 31st. As you know, the mid-year budget review is a crucial part of the budget process. It allows the council and the public to review the city's financial status and ensure we are on track to meet our budgetary goals while also providing fiscal transparency. And here are some highlights of this year's budget so far. The budgeted beginning general fund balance was 5.66 million. However, the actual fund balance at the end of June 2024 was 6.53 million, an increase of 872,000. Per the city's fund balance and reserve policy, any unassigned balance will be maintained within the city's general fund, and the Finance Committee is tasked with recommending whether any portion of the unassigned balance should be appropriated for specific purposes. Upon the Finance Committee's recommendation, the council approved in December the allocation of 550,000 of the 872,000 in unassigned funds to the Critical Infrastructure Reserve to assist with the funding of the Beach Road Stabilization Project, estimated at 2.8 million, which does not include the remaining design, engineering, and environmental mitigation costs. The city's largest liability is pension funding. The city began seeding the Section 115 trust in April of 2021, with total contributions to date of 2.55 million. However, investment gains have increased the balance to a little over 2.73 million. The goal of this trust is for full funding of the city's pension liabilities. Revenues and expenditures should be about 50% of the budget for this point in the fiscal year. Total revenues are currently exceeding those expectations at 59%, and total expenditures are slightly below at 46%. As I mentioned, revenues should be at approximately 50% of the budgeted amount. Currently, total revenues are at 6.25 million, which is 58% of the budget. General fund revenues stand at 59%, with property taxes accounting for the largest portion, totaling 4.27 million. The revenues for the Capital Improvement Fund are showing a positive trend. This year, road impact fees have already generated 98,000 or 64% of budget for the fiscal year. Funds received from the Transportation Authority of Marin of 63,000 are allocated to the city's lane maintenance and repair, lane design and engineering, and Cedar Lane structural repair projects. Most of the other revenue funds are trending close to projected amounts and are expected to meet the budgeted estimates. On the expenditure side, expenditures are total 5.21 million or 44% of budget. General fund expenses are 3.25 million or 46%, which is slightly below the expected 50%. The Capital Improvement Fund expenditures have currently reached 23% of the budget. However, we are expecting some projects to begin once the weather improves. For this fiscal year, some capital projects are already underway or have been completed. These include street and road projects such as the grind and overlay on Beach Road, the retaining wall repair on Beach Road, as well as projects in progress such as the traffic engineering study, city hall renovations, and tennis court resurfacing, just to name a few. Under the lane category within the Capital Improvement Fund, the budget for lane design and engineering is expected to exceed the current year's budget of 15,000 by approximately 20,000. This increase is attributed to additional design and engineering work required for both the Park Lane Stair project and the Cedar Lane structural repair project. Therefore, staff is requesting a budget amendment of 20,000 for this line item to accommodate these extra expenditures. I do want to point out that in the Capital Improvement Fund, each line item represents an individual project. Therefore, it is not feasible for any project to exceed its budget within this fund. The Equipment Replacement Fund currently reflects the purchase and installation of a new sound system in council chambers, along with several new monitors for the dais and new staff table and lectern laptops to replace outdated equipment, which were all part of the budgeted expenditures for the fiscal year. And this brings us to a summary of the general fund. We don't expect any major differences between the projected and actual revenues and expenses. As mentioned earlier in the presentation, the general fund's beginning balance as of July 1st, 2024 increased to 6.53 million due to the unassigned revenue totaling the 872,000. Out of this increase, 550 was previously allocated in December. The table also reflects the proposed budget amendment of 20,000 for the Capital Improvement Fund. These allocated funds are included in this chart and contribute to the calculation of the estimated ending balance of the general fund, which is projected to be 4.74 million as of June 30th, 2025. And lastly, we'll look at the general fund reserve. In December of 2021, Council modified the general fund reserve policy to be calculated based on forecasted expenditures rather than current year expenditures. The fiscal year 25-26 projected general fund expense plus fire transfer plus debt service is 8.66 million. The reserve goal is 50% of this amount or 4.33 million. The projected general fund balance of 4.74 million continues to meet the council's established reserve policy goal. And in conclusion, the Finance Committee did review this mid-year budget report at their meeting on January 29th, and they did recommend that council receive the report and approve the proposed budget amendment. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Does anyone from the council have a question? No?
I have a question, and Sally's not going to like me for this. This was brought up at the Finance Committee. This is in relation to the $20,000 budget amendment item. You know, in a broader fund or in a broader category where we're only at 23% of the annual spending, and we're expecting a $400,000 surplus at the end of the year from a general fund perspective. I understand you're required to level out those particular budget items. But I would imagine within that capital fund, there are other budget items that are nowhere near completion and will not be completed in this year. I would think you could move the 20K over from an existing fund as opposed to add it to capital fund that is already well on its way to not be fulfilled, to not be spent.
So we do have a couple projects that have completed within the capital fund, and they do have some remaining balance, but there are other funds, other projects within the capital fund that have gone over. And so we are moving those kind of extra funds remaining from those projects to those other projects that have gone over. So there's not a lot of room to account for an additional 20,000. So that's why we're asking.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. Thank you.
That's very generous of you.
Well, I think
it does. I mean, John and others did mention this. It is surprising that you're adding 20,000 to, $1.98 million budget when only 483 has been spent to date. So just on the surface, it seems unnecessary. And I know we don't have the granular detail to look at the project by project allocated budgets and where they stand and where they go.
Right.
So hence my comment, I'll take your word for it.
I will add to that, though, there are certain revenues which are ring fenced for very specific capital items. So it isn't just, you can't just move A to B to C. There are some things that are constrained.
We'll take your word for it.
Thank you. And I will just add there, because we, at the Finance Committee meeting, we had mentioned that our investment in our 115 fund was performing surprisingly poorly. And so myself, Will and Helga had met with the CalPERS who manage the 115 fund to understand why we were underperforming their benchmarks. And it really was that the early funds that went in, we just put them in at the wrong time every damn month. They went in at the high in the market. And so we started off very low and we're catching up essentially. So over a long-term trend, we will do better, and their benchmark is still a 5.5% return, did they say that? For the 115, 5.5%?
I believe so.
And we're
yes.
currently around 3 and a bit percent. So we've got some catch up to do.
Since you brought up that this, whatever term or whatever, that we're low on the returns, what is the interest that we pay on the unfunded liability? Do we pay interest on unfunded liability? Are you answering?
I think Sally's going to answer that.
Every year that we don't fund effectively, it's not interest, but they have a 6.8% expected rate of return. So you've not got the money in there, you've got another 6.8% to catch up.
So that's why you're saying it came in low, because it wasn't.
No, they're two separate things. So you've got your CalPERS fund, which we pay into. We have requirements to pay into there, and we have set up separately a 115 Section 115 trust to supplement the payments that we make to CalPERS directly into a separate fund, which we then get to manage. And the advantage of doing that instead of giving the money directly to CalPERS is that we can use that funding to actually make annual pension contributions. So it gives you more flexibility. Then once you've given money to CalPERS, you can't take it out again, but effectively we could use the funds that we've put into the 115 to make annual payments if we wanted to. And actually over the period to 2040, we will certainly do that as we build up that funding.
Okay. Thank you. So I guess, I mean, I understand it would be a lot of work for you to pull that together, Helga, but in general, you're saying that the bulk of the unspent funds, that there are projects in place that you anticipate will use up, will get us closer to the 100% that we anticipate right now. As Councilmember Mark said, we're down in every single item, line item or topic.
Right, the capital improvement funds only spent 23% of their budget. And so some projects we anticipate will complete in the next couple months, but there will be some projects that will roll over into next year.
They'll
So
roll over, yeah.
They won't finish this year.
And so that was one of my questions about the lanes amount. And that was because it was fully rolled over, the 190 something. I think it was 192,000 or something. So that was a rollover from the previous year that didn't get spent. And I'm
Correct.
guessing that's Park Lane money. And that's why it hasn't been spent yet. I mean, you don't have to check, but it's something. It's
Yeah,
probably something like
there
that.
was money that was allocated to Park Lane in
Right.
last year's budget, and those projects, none of that money was
Right,
spent,
none of
and
it
it
was
was
spent.
all rolled over
Right.
to this year.
Okay.
So, and then there was 36,000, around 36,000 that was part of the San Rafael Safety Avenue project. And because that project got eliminated last year, that 36,000 that was TAM Measure B money, that got allocated to the Park Lane stairs.
Oh,
So
it
that's,
did. Okay.
that's part of that
That's
money
part
in
of-
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So do we, I know we've talked about this new fee structure and permitting that that's being worked on right now. Is it safe to assume that that new permitting or fee structure that's being developed would increase money that comes in? Do we have any thoughts about that yet? Would it stay the same? Would be losing money for these recovery?
Yeah, maybe I can answer that one. As you know, it's been quite a while since we did a fee study. I don't know if we've ever done a fee study
Never.
before. I think what we found out is that our fees are pretty low here in Belvedere. We don't know exactly where we're going to land in terms of the strategy they've implemented for updating the fees and what, where the rubber meets the road in terms of revenue generation. But we're looking into that. It's understood it's going to be probably more than we're currently taking in right now. So it'll be a positive net increase. It's actually going to be a discussion at the City Council retreat on Thursday. We'll have a presentation from ClearSource Financial, thank you. And they'll be going over some broad brushstrokes of their current progress.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. And can you please remind me where CTL fines go? Does it just go to the general fund? Or where are they designated?
So CTL fines do get deposited into the general fund, but at the fiscal year end, they go towards the insurance and legal reserve fund to keep that, I believe, at the 350,000 that's set as part of the finance policy for fund balance.
Okay. And if there's more than the 350 designated, that would just stay in the general fund?
Correct.
Okay, great. And then I don't know if you're planning on doing this, but I know at the retreat, we have a discussion on the housing element. And I wonder if it's possible to let us know where we are there, how much we've spent on the housing element.
Sure.
Maybe on consultants and then on legal and on consultants, separate that out.
I can do that.
Okay, great, thanks. Any other questions? Okay, Then do we have any questions from the audience that we don't have? Nope. Okay, how about on Zoom?
Raised. No
None-
hands raised.
Not on Zoom. Okay. Then would anyone like to discuss this, or are we ready to have a motion to approve resolution 2025-05, amending the 2024-25 capital improvement fund with an increase of $20,000?
I can make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
And
Okay.
I assume we also have to make the, that we have to acknowledge that we're accepting the mid-year review, right?
Correct.
Oh, right. Okay.
So-
Is that a separate motion?
I don't think it's a motion, but I think we're just acknowledging that we're
Okay.
accepting it.
We're acknowledging that we're accepting it.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your work on this. Okay. That takes us to the open forum. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to briefly address the city council on any matter that does not appear on this agenda, but is within the city council's subject matter jurisdiction. Upon being recognized by the mayor, please limit your oral statement to no more than 3 minutes. Under the Brown Act, council members may not deliberate or take action on items not on tonight's agenda. Matters that appear to warrant a more lengthy presentation or council consideration may be placed on the agenda for further discussion at a later meeting. Is there anyone here who wishes to make a public comment? Anyone on Zoom?
Mayor Cooper, there are no hands raised.
Okay, then seeing nothing else on our agenda, I will close our February 10th, 2025 meeting.